Hi everyone. Today I'm going to compare the military might of China and Japan to find who is more powerful. Within this video, I compared both nations' Army, Air Force, and Navy. Who has a strong military, Air Force, Army, and Navy power? Military power comparison 2024 is shown in this video. 2024 military power comparison between China and Japan. Military might of China vs Japan in 2024. 2024 military power comparison between China and Japan. Japan's military might in 2024. The military might of China in 2024. Power comparison of the Chinese and Japanese Air Forces in 2024. Japan versus China. China versus Japan. The entire topic of Chinese and Japanese naval power in 2024. Chinese and Japanese armies will face up in 2024. Global military might. 2024 military power comparison. The national defense budget and the GDP growth target are the main figures that draw much external attention during the two sessions each year. With a growth rate of 7.2%, China's national defense budget for this year is expected to be around 1.67 trillion yuan, $234.5 billion, continuing at the same pace as the previous one. China's defense budget has grown by single digits for the 9th year in a row. Every year, there is a wave of excitement surrounding the China military threat theory as soon as this data is made public. Japan led the charge this year in stoking the rumors. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi immediately voiced serious concerns at a press conference on the day the data was made public. He stated that China has continuously boosted its national defense expenditures to strengthen its military power without sufficient transparency, describing it as the biggest unprecedented strategic challenge. In his response, he also underlined the necessity of using Japan's full power and with the help of allies and like-minded nations. It is not surprising that Japan reacted so quickly given its recent behavioral trends. It is not, however, in a position to make such claims. Take a look at Japan's defense budget for the 2024 fiscal year, which reached a record high after rising by 16.5% from the year before. This is a growth rate of over double the Chinese defense expenditure. Even if the peace constitution places restrictions on Japan, this is still the situation. According to the Japanese newspaper Asahi Shimbun, the budget is so vast that it has entirely outgrown its necessities and is inflated. As it enacted the new 3 security documents at the end of 2022, Japan's efforts and determination to increase its military power are appropriately characterized as having increased its power quickly and extensively without sufficient transparency. The Asia-Pacific region's security is at risk due to Japan's current urgency in breaking through the peace constitution, especially in light of its military background and previous aggression against neighboring Asian countries. China has insisted on never pursuing hegemony, expansion, or areas of influence, and has consistently upheld a defensive national defense strategy. China must, nevertheless, protect its national interests, including the fundamental ones of preserving its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Out of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, China is the only one that hasn't achieved reunification yet. The forces of Taiwan independence and outside meddling have been looking for chances to stir things up. Therefore, China needs to bolster its national defense capabilities. The People's Liberation Army can more successfully protect regional and international peace and stability the stronger it is as a force for peace, since the world is not a peaceful place. Japan can only represent itself. It utilizes the whole community as a cloak. The international community will only feel secure as a result of China's defense buildup. It does not view China as a threat or harbor bad intentions. Is an increase of 7.2% noteworthy? It is necessary to compare both horizontally and vertically to respond to this question. For a considerable amount of time, China's GDP has included less than 1.5% of military spending, compared to nearly 3% in the US. The United States spends more than 15 times as much per person on the military than China does. Other NATO members have been forced by the US to raise their military budgets to more than 2% of their respective GDPs. Despite not being a member of NATO, Japan freely adheres to this guideline. It is anticipated that Japan's defense budget will stay at this level for the next 3 years at the very least, so this year's increase is not an accident. China's defense spending has always been relatively low when compared to military powers like the US, as the spokesperson for the 14th National People's Congress pointed out on Tuesday. This is true whether looking at defense spending as a percentage of GDP, national fiscal expenditure, or per capita national defense and military expenditure. Reverse causality presents another issue in this situation. The security pressure that Western nations, especially Japan, have placed on China in various ways has, in part, prevented China from relaxing, forcing it to fortify its national defense infrastructure. Western nations then utilize this to promote the China military threat theory. China is one of the greatest nations in human history, having developed to unprecedented levels of prosperity in an entirely peaceful manner. China is widely perceived around the world as a great nation that is tranquil and self-restrained. China's legitimate military spending growth is a legitimate matter, and only those with nefarious intentions, seeking to stifle China's natural military development and impede China's military modernization progress on the pretext of deterrence, will raise concerns and cast blame. To improve interoperability and readiness, Japan and the US have been debating how to expand their command and control cooperation, Hayashi told reporters. According to the Reuters news agency, US President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will present a plan in April to reorganize the US Military Command's East Asia command structure. According to Hayashi, the summit's agenda has not yet been determined. He stated, "As far as I can tell, no decisions have been made about the American side's organization, including enhancing the capabilities of U.S. forces Japan." Although the Pentagon is some way from making any decision, according to the Financial Times, Japan and the U.S. were keen to strengthen their relations to respond to what they view as a growing threat from China. According to anonymous sources cited by Reuters, Washington would think about designating a four-star general to command American forces in Japan in place of the head of a proposed Japanese Self-Defense Forces (SDF) headquarters that would supervise all of the nation's military operations. When Biden and Kishida meet at the White House on April 10, details of the security plan are expected to be revealed. The next day will mark the first three-way summit between the Philippines, the United States, and Japan. As tensions with China in the South China Sea have increased, the U.S. has been working to strengthen its relationship with Manila. Common strategic challenge. As a close ally, Japan plays a significant role in the U.S. strategy on China, North Korea, and other security concerns in Asia. Although Japan and Taiwan do not have formal diplomatic ties, like other nations, Tokyo infuriated China early this year by extending congratulations to William Lai Ching-te, the president-elect of Taiwan. China asserts ownership of the vital island. China's increasing military might and the threat it poses to Taiwan, which is only 100 kilometers, 62 miles from Japanese territory, have alarmed Tokyo, which has expressed serious concern. Tokyo promised to raise defense expenditure to 2% of GDP last year as part of its largest military buildup since World War II. Additionally, it pledged to increase transportation capacity, build cyber warfare capabilities, accumulate spare parts and other armaments, and acquire missiles capable of striking ships or land-based targets 1,000 kilometers, 621 miles away. After the defense and foreign ministries of Japan and the United States met in Washington last year, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken declared that is the greatest shared strategic challenge that we and our allies and partners face. Japan is home to the largest number of U.S. military personnel stationed abroad, numbering 54,000. In an article regarding the possible strengthened alliance, the Japanese newspaper Yomiuri stated that Japan now has to deal with the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, which is situated in Hawaii, for several decisions. As they watch China's growing threat, Japan and the U.S. are in negotiations to expand their military cooperation. Increased integration and cooperation between the two nations are being discussed, a spokesman for the Japanese government, Yoshimasa Hayashi, said on Monday. According to reports, U.S. operations in the nation are expected to be significantly enhanced as Washington attempts to offset any possible Chinese threat.